Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good evening, good night, good day. Hope you're having a great one, whatever it is. Whether you're on the East Coast, you're on the West Coast, you're on the other side of the world. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're here. I really appreciate it. Uh, the last podcast, I was having a little bit of problem with my Rodecaster Pro and actually getting into work on Streamlabs, this platform. I apologize about that, but technical difficulties are part of this whole process. Uh, Shout out to my man Jim Stanley and his ministry. Uh, this is a great video right here. I watched a few of these videos, and I did my own research. This video here was very good. Came from a Christian perspective, and I really enjoyed it. Shout out to Jim Stanley. Please go check his YouTube channel out. Shout out to him. Big shout out to my man Sub Zero. Sub Zero is really good podcast. Please go and check him out. He's an inspiration to me. And I watch his podcast almost every day. Almost every podcast I watch him. I watch his growth and his progression. And God bless him. God bless him. Let's get right into it. This is going to be part 2 of Valentine's Day, the destruction of love. The last podcast we talked about love and all of its definitions. And now we'll get into Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day was what I call misdirection. Misdirection is a loaded term. It means to misdirect thoughts to the person that's doing the misdirection. And it's a story basically that the person that's receiving the misdirection tells themselves so that they will believe the con man presenting the misdirection to them. It is not, we make a smoke screen over here. You look at the smoke screen, I do something over here, and voila, this is that. This is not what misdirection is. Misdirection is exactly what it says it is. Misdirection means to guide you in the wrong direction. This Valentine's Day whole pagan holiday is a big misdirection. As Christians or good Jews, we are not supposed to worship any of these holidays or participate, in any of these holidays, simply because it does not glorify God. You can't serve two masters at the same time. I think we all know this, and it is a trick. It is a trick. In my opinion, Valentine's Day was invented or started to mask the high holy days of Yom Kippur amongst the other feast days of the spring and the fall in the Jewish religion. Valentine's Day was a Roman holiday. A Roman holiday that basically worshiped Pan, and the name of this holiday was Lupricalia. Let's get into Rome. Rome was named after two orphan boys named Remus and Romulus. They were abandoned and they were raised by a she-wolf. There's pictures of the she-wolf nursing the two children. They were born in the hills of Rome and in a cave. Lupricalia is worshipped in that same cave. The word Lupricalia means purification. Lupricalia was, like I said, worshipped in those same caves of Remus and Romulus. It honors Lupricus or Pan, the fertility god of lust, sex, and fertility, lustful sex and fertility. The festival took place in Luprical. Luprical was that cave that I was just talking about. The fertility of this was about basically not about fertility of men and women, but fertility of the livestock. I guess this was very, very the livestock was kind of worshipped because this was their food. This was their food source. This was their main source of protein. You got to remember where we are in Europe, in the hills of Europe. In the wintertime, vegetation didn't really grow. First of all, it's a mountain, or hilly or mountainous range. It gets extremely cold. So food is, in short supply. This is the reason why they would have these holidays based around, uh, winter, spring, and summer. Because in the winter, a lot of people would die. A lot of people would really die in winter. So the winter equinox was about death and rebirth. When you made it through the winter, that was a blessing. So just like when you see Halloween, Halloween is the color is orange. Orange is the color of warning. Warning means winter is coming. Death is coming. The winter equinox in December 25th, which is not Jesus' birthday, but it is the winter equinox. This, when Jesus supposedly died and reborn, this is when the longest days of winter occur. And this is where death is looming. Spring is for fertility. So let's get back down into what Lupricalia is. Lupricalia is the worship of the pan god, or Luprico. I mean, not Luprico, Lupricalia. Or Lupricus. I'm sorry. Lupricus or Pan. Pan is a goat-headed human with horns. This goes back to their livestock and their fertility of livestock. This is the reason why he is for lustful sex, and he's a goat. So this goes back, like I said, to their livestock. In this ritual of Lupricalia, they would have two young men naked, and they would take their swords. First of all, they would sacrifice two goats and a dog. They would sacrifice these goats and strip their skins off, keep their skins bloody. They would dip their swords or their daggers that they slaughtered these sacrifices with, and they would take two naked boys or two naked men, and they would put the blood of the sacrifices on their foreheads. After they put the blood on their foreheads, they would dip wool in milk and wipe the blood off of the forehead. as they wiped the blood off the forehead, the person that was presiding over this ritual, the priest or whatever they would call them, would laugh loudly. In my opinion, this was a mockery of the Passover and Yom Kippur, which in Yom Kippur, they would have two goats. And these two goats, one would be slaughtered and sacrificed. The other would be blindfolded, and they would pray their sins into this goat. And after they would do that, after they would pray their sins into this goat, they would usher the goat into the wilderness and throw it off a cliff. This was to get rid of the sins. I believe that Yom Kippur, Lupricalia, was a blasphemous mockery of these two rituals, Passover and Yom Kippur, which are high holy days. After they would do this sacrifice and the thing with the two boys, they would strip the goats. They would strip their skins. Like I said, they would leave them bloody, and naked men would run around town whipping the behinds and skin of women that wanted to have fertility, women that wanted to have sex. And this was supposed to be a ritual of fertility. They would also gather in huge gatherings, a whole bunch of people. And what they would do is they would put the names of women inside of a big vase or basin. And they would choose pick the names out randomly, these men, and whatever woman that they would choose, they would have sex with. Now, like I said, this is loose sex. This is fornication. This is sex with no feeling. This is like animals having sex. It has no rhyme or reason other than to get pregnant. Like I said, this was at a time when they would lose a lot of people in the winter. And the spring was a rejuvenation of this. Like I said, this was sex with no love. This was fornication at its fullest. Uh, these things were the start of Valentine's Day. The red rose. The red rose was a symbol of Astarte or Aphrodite. I'm sorry, Aphrodite. Um, Aphrodite was the mother of Eros, which would later become Cupid. Cupid, what his father was Ares or Mars, the god of war. And the reason why he had a bow or was a hunter god. Eros, I'm talking about, or Cupid. Cupid had a romantic relationship with his mother, Aphrodite, because Aphrodite was the goddess of intercourse, actual intercourse. She was the goddess of intercourse. So naturally, she would have this ancestral relationship with her child. Now, Eros was depicted as a naked man with a bow and arrow. He was a hunter. So this was the change from Lupricalia to Valentine's Day in Eros or Cupid. The bow and arrow was the whip, or the piece of skin that they would whip the women with. Uh, it was of course, this was the phallic part of of the story. The bow and arrow was actually the phallic part, and so was the whip. Uh, Cupid would shoot uh his victims with this arrow, and it would curse them to love someone that would be bad for them. They would have an infatuation. The love would be, you know, very, very bad. They would be, totally taken in, and the love would make them, well, the infatuation, not love, would cause them to be slaves to this person that he shot the arrow with. It was a love curse. Uh, this is the essence of Valentine's Day and its inception. Now, back to what I was saying in the last podcast. Uh, this is not love. This is infatuation. This is lust. Lust and infatuation can be, because they're emotional. They're extremely emotional forces. They're very powerful. And what happens is they have misdirected us into believing that this strong force of lust and infatuation, which are both short-lived feelings, they're kind of like cocaine, where you get a very quick high off of the cocaine, and then it's diminished, and then it's left with you chasing that high over and over to try to get the same one. And as your uh tolerance begins to grow, you need more and more and more, and it becomes an empty hole. This is what sex with fornication, pornography, and infatuation bring. It's the opposite of agape. Agape is a gap, like I said. It's a wholeness. It is holy. Agape, coming from holy. It's the exact opposite. When it's lustful, you fall into a hole that gives you nothing in return. This is what this uh lustful thing is. Pornography. Um, this is what Valentine's Day is about. Now, what this does to a society of people, and believe me, we are in the new Rome. The new Rome was the new Babylon. We are the new Babylon, or the new Rome in combination. And in this this country was raised on Christianity. It was raised on the love of the creator, Yahweh. It was raised on good moral character and family. And since has been corrupted by these Europeans that basically own this country. This is a slave country. Not just for black folks, it's for the immigrants. If you know, uh we, when I say we, I mean us as the natives of this country. Even if you believe that you were from Africa, I'm sure you can't go back to Africa and with open arms in Africa if you decide to go back. And if you do believe that you're African, what part of Africa are you from? What language do you speak? What customs do you understand? How could you say that you are African American? Really? So, that being said, I digress a little bit. Apologize about that. I'm trying to stay on topic. But we were the original Americans. And the immigrants that came here were also indentured servants of these European countries. These European countries are the powers over us. They are the they. They are what we call, which is an anagram or a myth, a mythologic thing in the Illuminati. The Illuminati is another word for Vatican Church, if I must be so frank. Illuminati is what we're talking about, Rome. It is the Roman leaders. Back to what I was saying. These Roman leaders in the New World did not, by any shape of the word, want us to reconform into our own nation. What are nations built on? Family. Family and moral structure. Family and moral structure belong to spiritual structure. You cannot have anything without spiritual first. With everything. That's why, I believe that this world is not material. It is not material. It is only imagined. It's imagined with our senses. They say every molecule is 99% empty space. Everything that we can imagine is 99% empty space? Really? So what does that mean? That means that this is a holographic world. So what is the real world? The real world is spirit. That's why everything starts with spirit first. And with Valentine's Day and this lustful holiday that they have, it destroys the moral character of family. Sex is not a pornographic thing. It is a beautiful thing. It is what God made women and men for. God made woman to keep men company, to be his extra part. It is not natural for a man to be alone. It's not natural. We must form relationships of all kinds, not just sexual relationships, not just business relationships, not just family relationships, but all relationships. We must have relationships with our environment. We must have relationships with ourselves. We must have relationships with our food and our health, our well being. We must have relationships with our past, our future, our present. Everything is built in relationships. Everything. What you have to do with the other, what you are giving to something, and what you are receiving from something. This is the base of all existence. This is the reason why Valentine's Day, in its inception, is so wicked. This is the reason why I called it black magic from the beginning. It is black magic. Black magic is uh, a misdirection of death instead of life. They celebrate death instead of life because the celebration of death is power. It is power. And that's why they have this pope here. And this is what it is. He's a pope. This is the reason why they have him here with his finger over his lips, which was in Egypt. This is what the baby Horus used for secret understanding. This gesture comes from Egypt. And these are the new Egyptians. They have hijacked things, everything that they know in Rome from Egypt. The Egyptians weren't, the most beautiful things in the world. This is the reason why I think, in my opinion, this is the reason why we are so scourged as Black folks, because we were the rulers of this planet at one time. And we were the gods of this planet at one time. We were the ones that people worshiped. They did not know any other God but us. And this is the reason why I believe, this is just my opinion. I actually have a little bit of factual evidence on this, but that even in that factual evidence, in my opinion, it doesn't prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is true. But I believe that because of that, God has cursed us as Black folks to actually be under our underlings, be ruled by what we created, and be scourged by everything in the world. I believe that this was our punishment. I could be wrong. So I got a little bit off the subject. So now where were we? Check my notes here. Okay. So Pope Galatius was the one that changed Lupricalia to Valentine's Day. He changed it to Valentine's Day the day after he said that Lupricalia was outlawed or banned. He brought in this thing called Valentine's Day. Geoffrey or Godfrey Chaucer was a famous English author. Is that his name? Chaucer was a famous English author of the 14th century. He created the feast of Valentine's Day. Well, I'm sorry. He actually, on Valentine's Day, he saw that on the 14th of February, these birds would come together for mating season. It would be mating season for these birds. And he thought it was ironic that it was on the day of Lupricalia where they came together for their mating season. And this author, he basically, made it known about this mating season. And the mating season was then brought up to Valentine's Day. It was just another way of saying that this day was the day that, they should have this festival of fertility. The 14th was also the day that they killed Saint Valentine. Now, Saint Valentine was a Christian man where he obviously had the gift of healing. Now, there were so many different stories about this Valentine where it almost seemed as though it was more than one Valentine. I think these stories were a lot of allegory, but I'll tell you one of them. One of the stories was that Saint Valentine, uh, he was trying to convert people into Christianity, and there was a man that had a blind daughter. This blind daughter uh, needed to be healed. So Saint Valentine said that he could heal the blind daughter of her blindness, but he would only do it with one thing in mind. And that thing was, if he healed this blind daughter of this man, then the man and his family would convert to Christianity. So the man obviously, he said he would do it. He would do anything for his daughter to be healed of her blindness. Saint Valentine then put his hands on her eyes and healed her eyes in the name of Christianity and the great Yahweh, Jehovah. Uh, the story got back to the emperor at the time, and the emperor went and sent his people to grab up Saint Valentine. And they got Saint Valentine, and they got the family of the blind child, and the father and the whole family. They got them together, and he wanted Saint Valentine and the family to renounce their Christianity. Saint Valentine's Day said he wouldn't, so they cut his head off. They decapitated him, and the whole family that he, of the family of the girl that he healed and her, they decapitated them all. And with Saint Valentine, they took his skull, they put it one place, they took his forearm, they put it someplace, took his leg, they took his all his body parts, and they scattered them throughout the hills of Rome. And they're supposedly there to this day, where people can spectate and see these body parts of Saint Valentine. Uh why they would celebrate killing this man is because Christianity in Rome was outlawed, and it was a threat to Roman power, because what it did was it took away power of man and put it in power of God, Yahweh, Yeshua, and Jehovah, the Holy Spirit. And that was a huge threat. It was a huge threat. So this is the reason why they martyred Saint Valentine. Uh, Saint Valentine, I believe that Pope Galatius named it Saint Valentine's Day. He named this pagan holiday after Saint Valentine, uh, as a mockery to Saint Valentine for being a Christian, and it gave the face of this pagan holiday to Christianity. So it made it easier for Christians to adopt this pagan holiday as their own. They kind of forgot that it was a festival of fornication. And it was Satan's day. Satan is Pan. Pan is Satan. Or Juno, they called him. So it made it easier, just like all the rest of the holidays, uh, for Christians to accept. And they've gotten Christians to accept Satanism at its fullest. They've gotten Christians to be secular or westernized, worldly. Christians have decided at this point in time to accept all things. And because they believe that they can just sprinkle a little holy water on it, so to speak, and it becomes pure. But it clearly says in Deuteronomy chapter 12 that you cannot borrow from pagan. You cannot you you cannot use pagan and say that it is of God. You can't, you just can't do that. Deuteronomy chapter 12, it says this. I believe that this was one of the main problems with family and love in general. Love is the thing that binds people together. Love of family, love of the wife, love of the children, love of your neighbor, love of yourself. Real love, a giving, sacrificial love. These loves had to be destroyed. All love had to be destroyed in order for power to exist in this world. And that's what these pagan holidays have done. That they have destroyed all love. And they've corrupted it into fornication and money, the love of money and materialism. Materialism is another form of love. We live in a what? Capitalist society where capital is God. And God we trust, it says, on the dollar. Think about that. Does it say in Yahweh we trust? Does it say in Jehovah we trust? No, it doesn't. Does it say in Elohim we trust? It says in God we trust. God is a title given to something that is worshiped above you. A car could be a God. Your wife could be a God. You could be a God. You're not the creator. You're not Yahweh. But you can be a God. All you have to do is not believe in Yahweh and believe in yourself or whatever that thing is that you put above you. And then you realize you are not God. And that's what they want. They want a whole bunch of little gods in this world. They want a whole bunch of selfish people in this world. They want us all separate. They want us all apart. They don't want us to come together. By they, I mean the elite in the Vatican family and the Zionists. This is the they I speak about. They are the synagogue of Satan. And, you know, Satan has promised them the world. Same thing he tried to promise Jesus that Jesus denied. They promised them, the rulers, the same thing. What was in the garden? The trees, right? This is the essence of paganism. What do they call pagans? Tree huggers, worshipers of nature, worshipers of the sun, worshipers of the moon, worshipers of the planet, worshipers of the trees, worshipers of the water, worshipers of God, worshipers of cows, worshipers of the creation and not the creator. Satan said, I will make them worship everything but you. Yahweh said, do what you will, do what you must. Why does God need Satan to do what he must? Why does God allow Satan to corrupt his children? Because it is the essence of free will. There would be no free will without evil. This is what the black and white in the checkered floor is about. As is above, so is below. This is what the two trees were about. This is duality. You have the tree of life and you have the tree of knowledge, right? The tree of knowledge was death and destruction. What'd Satan say? You shall not surely die. You shall not surely die if you partake in this fruit. And what happened? Did Satan tell the truth? Or did he misdirect? I believe it was a misdirection. Eve or Adam did not die physically. This was the misdirection. But they died spiritually when they ate of this apple or this fruit. What was the first thing they noticed? They noticed they were naked. Fornication. They got horny. This is what the tree of knowledge did. This is the reason why they are called the Illuminati, the enlightened ones. This is why the Masons say, come into the light. This is the reason why. Because light is a misdirection. When you look into the sun, what happens? You become blind. Light is blinding. It does not illuminate. It is blinding. The only light that you can have is when you realize that you are within darkness and you follow Yahweh's light. Yahweh is the only light. The Most High is the only light. He is the light of the world. And you follow that light. You don't become that light. You are not enlightened. You follow that light. And when you understand what the sacrifice of Jesus was, you understand what true love is. True love is the sacrifice. True love is patience. True love is understanding. True love is acceptance. This is what true love is. True love has nothing to do with sex. Sex is a byproduct of love. Sex is a reciprocation of love. And sex with two people that love one another brings the seed of life into the existence of the world, which is beauty. The only beauty that we have is the beauty of God's speed. Take that in. So the next time you think about, your Valentine's Day cards, think of Lupricalia and when they used to choose their Valentine. They used to choose out of this vat or this pot the name to fornicate with without knowing the person, just to fornicate. Think of that. Think of this time where we're in of prostitution. Sex now has become pornographic and prostitution. It is all based in the woman gaining resource from the man. It is all based in the man giving his resources to the woman for sex. It has nothing to do with two people coming together, learning who each other is and accepting who each other is, and hand in hand serving God in their sex, their sexual bond, having a seed to pass this down to, this love down to. They in turn loving the seed like they love each themselves and each other. What did God say? Love your neighbor as you love yourself. What is that saying? Isn't that saying to love yourself? Isn't that saying that the love of self is the most high love? You love God first, and then you love yourself. And then you love other people. Real love, not infatuation, not lust. You can't lust yourself, can you? Can you really lust yourself? Can you really be sexually turned on by yourself? Really? I mean, you could masturbate, but isn't when you masturbate, you're thinking about someone else? Isn't that still sex with someone else? Can you really lust yourself? How do you love yourself? By sacrificing, right? This is why you need to fast. I got in control of my body and my physical form when I learned to fast. First time I fasted for 1 day and believed I would die. Literally. I believed I would die. And I only went 1 day. This is a fact. This is an actual fact. I believed I would die. At that time, I was drinking heavy. I was smoking heavy. And I was totally outside of who I was. I was way overweight. I think I was at 220 or so at that time. Now I walk around at around 170 or so. You know, I could walk around at 150, 155, but that's a little too skinny for me. So now I walk around at around 170. I can control my weight to where I want. But I learned to do this from fasting. Fasting is what taught me how to do this. The second time I fasted for 3 days. In 3 days, I almost ate bacon. Now, I haven't eaten pork since I was around 16. I was working at Wendy's, and we used to make the bacon in the morning. We used to make the bacon, and we used to warm the buns, because we used to warm the buns and then put them back into the packaging, and then keep the packaging in the warmer. So it was like it was toasted. And so it would be like toasted bread with fresh bacon. We would cook, I don't know, 30 pounds of bacon or so for the start of the day. And then we would keep the bacon in a certain place. And then we'll rewarm the bacon into the grease when we made bacon cheeseburgers and stuff like that. And so we would have to cook all these pounds of bacon. And I would just take the bacon, put it on the buns, and just eat them like candy. I don't know how many things of bacon I was eating. I would just eat them like candy. And this one day I did that, and I actually fell out, lost consciousness. I remember eating. I started salivating at the mouth, and I started like hyperventilating, and I blanked, and woke up. Everybody was over me. they were on calling the ambulance. I refused to get in the ambulance at that time. I was so young. I was scared to get in anybody's ambulance. I thought ambulance for dead people. And but that was the last day I ate bacon in my life. I never lost consciousness before that, and I lost it over eating bacon. So, that's my bacon story. But after fasting for 3 days, my wife at the time, she still eats pork, and she was cooking bacon for the children in the morning. And I was so hungry that it took everything for me not to eat that bacon. I actually walk out the house and walk around the corner and get control of myself not to eat the bacon. I stopped my fast at that moment and went and had something to eat. I remember I broke my fast terribly that time and got really, really sick. You're supposed to gradually move into the fast and gradually move away from it. Take that, fast forward that maybe 2 more years, and I had to get uh surgery on for a hernia operation. And I was really going through it at that time. I was on my way to getting the divorce, on my way to getting the separation. I was deeply, deeply in depression. I had stopped cutting hair at the time. And I make a long story short, I was just really, really in a dark place. I was really in a dark place financially. I was in a dark place spiritually. Uh, I was still drinking. I was still smoking. And my relationship was in the toilet. Uh, so I was about to have my surgery, and I I prayed to God. I called out to God, and He gave me this vision of telling me. Now, let's just be clear. I'm just going to say it the way I understand it. God's voice comes to you as a thought. It doesn't sound like a voice. It sounds like a thought. And God's voice came to me and said, this thought came that I should fast before I went to for my surgery. And he told me exactly how to fast. He said, move into the fast for the first 3 weeks. By, the first week, I stopped eating one thing. The next week I stopped eating something else. By the final week before my surgery, I just ate fruit that final week before the surgery. And then when I moved into the surgery, I stopped eating 3 days before the surgery. So I moved into my fast very gradually, and I was fully fasted for 3 days by the time it was time for me to have the surgery. Then I went in and had the surgery and came home. Amazingly, when I came home, I actually walked home from the hospital. I didn't live too far. It was maybe a quarter mile away from the hospital, and I was able to walk that quarter mile from the hospital to what's the name. Now, granted, you know, I still had the anesthesia and the numbing of the area, but that just goes to say how fresh I felt after the surgery. Surgery went perfectly, and by the time I got there after that walk, that next day I was damn near bedridden. My wife told me, that I shouldn't have done it, and I really paid for it that next day. But to make a long story short, I recovered very quickly. But in the recovery was another 3 days. So now I'm 6 days in, no eating. By the end of the fast, it had been 30 days, no food. I went through a very, very, very spiritual time. When you go into a deep fast like that, what happens is you kind of drift into the spirit world. If I'm saying that right, you kind of drift out of this world of fleshly living, and you kind of drift into the spirit world, and it makes it so it's very easy to access spiritual things that come from Yahweh. It is a very, very spiritual thing. My kids even got afraid and was like, "Oh, Dad, like you still haven't eaten," and everybody got afraid because it had been so long since I ate. But my wound healed so well where you can barely. I really, really have to find this scar that I had. I really have to find the scar, and you know, I became so strong after that. And then what I did was intermittent fasting after that. And in the intermittent fasting, uh I would I would not eat breakfast, and I would have my first meal at dinner time. And at dinner time I would basically eat what I want. I would ease into the fast, uh ease into the eating with fruit, maybe around 3 or so I would start eating fruit and drinking plenty of water. I would drink plenty of water, plenty of fluids. At the time I was drinking dandelion root, roasted dandelion root tea, which is very, very good for your liver, and it helps you to regenerate. I was drinking dandelion tea, and then I would have apples and oranges, and fruit before that. And then I would have my dinner. And then by 6 o'clock, I wouldn't eat anymore. I did this for a year. I did this until I got all the way down to about 147 pounds. And then at that time, that's when I started working at my job. My job is extremely physical labor, extreme physical labor. 8 to 10 hours a day. At the time, I was working 12 hours a day, selecting orders at Bazzuto's, and selecting orders. If anybody knows what it is like to select food orders, it is extremely physically taxing. So I I still was fasting through this, but I wasn't getting my caloric or my calories that I was supposed to get, and I really got down. That's why I said I got all the way down to around 147. And then I stopped fasting. I started because I had to catch up with my caloric rate and build my muscles, build my bones, build my structure to withstand, you know, all of this exertion. So I stopped my fast, but doing that, this fasting process is what got me in control of my physical body. I said all of this because I'm trying to express what loving yourself is, what this actually means. I was, God was telling me to love myself. And unfortunately, you know, I got back with my wife, and this fast drew us apart. Me giving myself to God in totality, loving myself the way He told me to do, following His lead is what drew me away from my wife. Now, that's not saying anything bad about my wife. My wife at the time was where I was. My first wife was where I was. And with her, I began to get my life together as far as not serving Satan. I was totally serving Satan. I was totally in the world. I would, you know, I'm not going to even get into the things that I would do in those streets to survive, what I believed I had to do to survive. I'm not going to get into that. But in my first marriage, I moved away from that, and that peeled me away from my first wife. In this one, I moved away from Satan even more, from the world even more, and I moved into believing that God was in control of my life wholeheartedly. And what happened? I lost everything. I lost everything, everything that I believed that I was, everything, all my finances, everything. I lost everything and I had to be reborn. I asked God for spiritual blindness, well, physical blindness and spiritual awareness. And he took everything. And this was the best blessing that I could have. This is what it took for me to learn to love myself. And when I learned to love myself, I was able to give agape love to my wife. But she wasn't able to receive it because she didn't have agape love. She didn't have it. But these things, this is not her fault. So now, you know, we are not together. But these things happen for a reason. These things have to fall away in order for you to be reborn. It has to be God's way. So we're going to end it off on that note. We're going to end it off on that note. I'm going to give an applause. I'm not sure if you can hear this. I'm not sure if you can hear that. It's an applause. And I kind of got off topic a little bit. I had a lot more notes. I had a lot more information on Valentine's Day. Not a lot more, but a little more. And I started getting off notes and speaking extemporaneously, but I was speaking from the heart. This has been an hour video. I can actually sit here and talk to y'all for an hour. And I'm so thankful. Believe me, a lot of this was inspired by the Most High. Like I said, I believe that this is my ministry. I believe that I was moved into this by God. This is my next thing. Please like and subscribe, share and subscribe. Please donate to my Cash App, Tahuti. It's not Tahuti 4. That is Tahuti for my Cash App donations. You know, it's $ Tahuti. Please donate so I can keep this up, so I can make some more money, so I can have some more time to actually edit these videos and show you guys my talent. I'm just trying to give you guys good content. I want to help you guys. I want to help myself. This is also therapy for myself. But I want to give back to the world for the rest of my life. This is what I want. So I'm saying all that to say this. Shalom. Good evening and good night. See you next time. I think my next podcast, I think I'm gonna do it on heliocentrism. We're gonna see about heliocentrism. I got a couple movies that I want to premiere. I got a few things I want to do. So thank you guys for watching the video. Thank you guys for liking the video. Please like the video so I can get this video out to as many people as I possibly can. Please comment in the comments, please, so I can get to know you guys. But this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna post every single day as much as I possibly can. When I stop this podcast here, I'm gonna start working on the other one immediately. And maybe by the end of tonight, I'll start that one and we'll do another one. But good night. Have a good one. Peace. I'll see you tomorrow.